Now, granted, they only play there once every 8 years, so that's 0-10. Mike Tomlin is 0-3. We've been outscored 84-22. And I think the last time we went, it was a 34-3 whooping. Now, all these guys wasn't there for either side. It was 8 years ago. Well, I mean, maybe Cam was there. Obviously, Tomlin was there. But they just don't play well in Philly for whatever reason it is. And we're going to go into this one without George Pickens.
Yes.
And they're saying there's a chance he could play. My point is that if Pittsburgh wins, I believe they said they clinch a playoff spot.
Welcome to Six Rings and Counting. I'm your host, Corey Idle, and joining me, as always, the playoff picture guru, the Swami himself, not Chris Berman, Mr. Lou Will.
Yeah, no, we not Chris Berman. Hey, yeah, we not Chris Berman.
No, we're not going to predict the Bills and 49ers every year. That's silly.
Because look, he hoping to eventually get it right before he leave the big ball. He hoping to eventually get it right.
He keeps coming back, man. He just needs to go away. Look, we got a lot to talk about here today, and most of it does not involve Chris Berman. We have the Steelers coming off their 27-14 victory over the Cleveland Browns. Another divisional win, putting the Steelers at 10-3, keeping us in third place in the AFC playoff hunt, first place in the division. And Lou, I got to tell you, I am loving the way we are looking heading into this Philadelphia Eagles game.
We are, but there's some bad stats when you look into the game. What sucks is when you look at the playoff picture to address the first part of the statement, we are in third because of strength of victory. How far you got to go down the tiebreaker list to get the strength of victory? But that's why we're in third instead of second. But all of that's irrelevant with 4 games left. What they have 4 games left.
4 games, yes, sir.
But the thing about this game this week, as optimistic as I am, Pittsburgh has, I'm going to give you a couple stats. Pittsburgh has not won in Philadelphia since 1965. That's 59 years. Now, granted, they only play there once every 8 years, so that's 0-10. Mike Tomlin is 0-3. We've been outscored 84-22. And I think the last time we went, it was a 34-3 whooping. Now, all these guys wasn't there for either side. It was 8 years ago. Well, I mean, maybe Cam was there. Obviously, Tomlin was there. But they just don't play well in Philly for whatever reason it is. And we're going to go into this one without George Pickens.
Yes.
And they're saying there's a chance he could play. My point is that if Pittsburgh wins, I believe they said they clinch a playoff spot. But you know when you clinch the playoff spot for sure is if you beat Baltimore next week. You clinch the playoff spot and the division. So I think they need to hold out Pickens for next week in Baltimore. Play him in Baltimore, beat him in Baltimore. I don't care how ugly or pretty it is. You need one more point than they got. Then you win the division and you clinch a playoff spot. But if you win this game, you clinch a playoff spot from what they're saying. You know, I had to get more into my notes here, but it's looking that way. But this is going to be tough. This is going to be tough. I think it's going to be a lot more low scoring than people think it's going to be.
That part I will 100% agree with. And all I have to say, your stats about Philadelphia are terrifying, frankly. But
they're just the truth.
It's a friggin' horror show written by Stephen King. But that being said, this team is different. There's something about this team where they are, even when it's an ugly win, they're pulling out the wins. And you can attribute that to Russell Wilson and Justin Fields not being Mason Rudolph. Fine. Or Kenny Pickett. That's one thing to take into consideration, too. This is a Kenny Pickett revenge game. He's going to come out firing on the sidelines, holding the ball for the kicker.
They'll probably start him over Hurts.
They might.
There's people in Philadelphia saying they should start him because Hurts and A.J. Brown are arguing.
There are also people in Philadelphia that still think the Rocky statue should be there. You know what I'm saying?
Come on. Yeah,
grow up. He's fiction. He's fictional, guys.
Yeah, we know Rocky's a real person.
Unless it's Always Sunny in Philadelphia or Abbott Elementary, I ain't got nothing to say about Philadelphia.
No, but seriously though, what we do have on our side, but that 34-3 beating, we had the 3 Bs. I mean, we were good, dude. We were good and got waxed. And they were not as good as they are now. But the thing is, there's just something different about this team. This team feels special.
That's what I'm saying.
I said, this team, I had I did the little short video. I had Bug and my Uncle Dickie over here. And I said, this is the first time I legitimately feel like the Steelers could go to the Super Bowl. I fear playing no one in the playoffs. No one, including Baltimore. I'd just rather not play Baltimore because it's the grudge match and it'd be the third game.
That's what I was going to say. I don't want to play anybody 3 times in a season.
But like playing Buffalo, Josh Allen ain't scoring 6 touchdowns on Pittsburgh. And I'm going to tell you right now, Saquon Barkley ain't running for 100 yards on Pittsburgh. They can cancel all that shit. So if you got A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts arguing with each other, okay, cool, we'll take it. But that guy back there that y'all got, the best one on the squad, in my opinion, the league MVP, I know Josh Allen is showing out. The league MVP, Saquon Barkley. They won't 100%. Give it to him because it's a quarterback award. So he'll only get the Player of the Year award. Come on, man. What's the difference? But anyway, his ass ain't reaching 75 yards on Pittsburgh. That's one of my, he ain't going for 75 because they ain't letting that happen. He ain't running over top nobody.
Let me ask you this. I want the thing that separates the Eagles from a lot of teams, in my opinion, is their ability to go for it and make it on 4th down. Typically 4th and short. I mean, the whole push thing became a pop culture item last year and slowly into this year, but the addition of Saquon, their receivers and Dallas Goedert playing so well, 4th down is not an issue for them. What do you see the Steelers doing to keep it 4th and mid, 4th and 5, 4th and 6, as opposed to a 4th and 3?
Has to at least be 4th and 3.
Okay.
If it's 4th and 2, they may go for it if they're on your side of the 50.
Sure.
On their side, if they're in their own territory on 4th and 2, they'll punt it.
Oh, but this isn't the Lions.
They're going for every 4th, and that's what's going to cost them the Super Bowl, that coach. But they're going for every 4th and 1. So the best thing you can do is stop 1st down. You got to stop 1st down, which that means you have to stop Saquon because who knew he was this good? Oh, we all knew. He just got drafted to a bad team. It's amazing what happens when a really, really good player, arguably great, goes to a good team. And they actually block somebody.
Yeah. And they have a quarterback that keeps the defense on their toes. The Eagles are built. The Eagles built themselves a lot the same way the Steelers did this offseason. 100%. The only thing they ignored
the same squads.
Was the defense. Their defense is not even a comparison. But yeah,
them young corners are going to be a problem this week without George Pickens, though. Quinyon Mitchell, or how you say it. If I'm sorry, young man, messing your name up, but I got a lot of respect for you.
No, you hit it. You hit Mitchell. It perfect. Save your apology for later.
And then Cooper DeJean. Them young boys is playing. So that's going to be a problem for Pittsburgh, but this is where we get them, at the tight end spot. So it's going to occupy their time. And Mike Williams is just so much bigger than those corners, though. He is going to have to come through this week for Pittsburgh to win. And this, I don't think, I'll give a prediction at the end of the game, but this isn't going to be a high-scoring game like I don't think it will, like everybody's saying it will be. I just don't see it. I don't see how it's going to be the high scoring. because Pittsburgh is going to keep Hurts in that damn pocket. They see it. They got this is Hurts' disadvantage. Pittsburgh has Justin Fields. It's the same disadvantage that Lamar has this year. We have Justin Fields. He's running scout team all week against Pittsburgh's defense. And he's not as good as them. I'm not saying he is, or he'd be starting. But what he is the next best thing to him. Either one of those teams would take him and be happy to stick him out there if, unfortunately, their quarterback went down.
Going back to the defense, even to our defense, do you see Pittsburgh playing this schematically a lot like they did in the Washington game, where it's more contain and keep in the pocket and let Jalen throw, as opposed to rolling out and doing his thing, stopping the run and letting him kind of get you deep? Or
it's like Washington and Baltimore. You got to keep his ass in the pocket. If you get out the pocket, it's like I always like to say, oh, he out the gate. Then I just lean back in my recliner like, oh, he out the gate. When he's out the gate. You got to keep him in the pocket. And unlike Lamar and Jaden Daniels, he really doesn't want to run that much. You ever notice he only runs in short spurts? He isn't running really anymore, and I could be wrong, but he's not really running much more than Patrick Mahomes. They want to throw the ball. Now he's not. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league. Y'all need to stop that. Talking about he having a bad year. Get the hell out of here with that. Bottom line is he wants to run to throw. That's what Mahomes does. The other was a tuck it and go.
Yeah.
So Pittsburgh has to keep him in there. The DBs have to lock down on, obviously, A.J. Brown, top 5 receiver, in my opinion. Devontae, even though he's not having the best of years because of lack of targets and the injury, is still a top 20 wide receiver. So it's going to be tough. At least the tight end was a little banged up, so that should help us a little bit because I think Goddard was a little banged up, but he's still a really formidable tight end, but all our linebackers can run with him. So we're going to have to you got to bracket A.J. Brown because we have JPJ, but no one can really lock him down. I mean, on their own all game. That's just too much to ask. And because you start doing that, you start freeing up the other side. So they're going to have to play. If Pittsburgh can keep this game between the numbers, Pittsburgh can win it. And I think I think that will be the game plan.
For our offense, this seems like an Arthur Smith game.
Absolutely.
Perfect setup, run heavy, play action, rollouts. Like you had alluded to earlier, our tight ends. Having Washington paired with Freiermuth has been everything. That may have been our best call of the season, was his influence and impact on the game week after week. Do you see them as our top receivers this week? And I mean, all reality. Last week, I think Washington had maybe 2 catches. Freiermuth had 3 for 40 something, I think.
Yeah, and the touchdown. But I honestly think I predicted Mike Williams a week early because as good as their DBs are, they may stick Mitchell on Calvin Austin because Mike Williams hasn't really done anything to speak of yet. But last week, I predicted he would have over 100 yards and a touchdown. Remember, he had the deep ball called back because of OPI. And then Russ just flat over threw him. He threw the ball out of bounds. He threw it in bounds. It's a long touchdown. So it would have been right. But woulda, coulda, shoulda, ain't going to get it done. You got to produce numbers. And so I look for them to bust out. But this could be a huge Darnell Washington week as well. Because the ball got to go somewhere. And just like Pittsburgh, you're just not lining up and running over top of the Eagles this year. You just ain't going to run over top. You're going to have to throw the ball. That's why I look for this game to be a lower scoring game because the points are going to come tough. Jalen Hurts is protecting the ball this year. He's not turning it over all the time. Pittsburgh's averaging almost 3 turnovers a game. So that's going to be a big component of what happens. And then if you look at the Steelers, Russ is protecting that ball. I mean, they want every drive to end in a kick like every team does. It's some type of kick up, the extra point first, field goal second, and a punt third. They don't want to end it in any other way unless they taking a knee. So
that's it.
It's going to be interesting, but I could see the tight ends having a big day led by Darnell Washington.
Najee and Jalen are continuing to just be dynamic in the backfield. Yeah. Does their influence impact how the Eagles maybe stack the box, bringing a safety down because they're not as afraid of us in the passing game without Pickens, and that will help the tight ends? What do you see the Eagles doing on defense?
On defense, I see them playing 8 in the box because they're going to make I look for them, as well as their corners are playing. I look for them to make Pittsburgh beat them through the air because their corners are playing really good ball right now. You can't take that away from them. Boys young, and they mixed in with a couple veterans, but those 2 young boys, man, they if the Eagles can afford them, they got a nice little backfield going there for them for a long time. But so I look for them to play 8 in the box. You might see 1 deep safety. I'm not too familiar if they play the deep, the 2 deep or the 1 single high, but whatever they play, I look for single high this week because George Pickens isn't out there.
Right.
If Pickens plays, you'll probably see the 2 deep safeties because you have to respect him. That's why you'll see Minka way back off the ball again this week because of A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. See, until Mike Williams makes them change that, because Calvin Austin will do his thing.
Sure.
Mike Williams has to show up and make them back up, and therefore the tight ends can get loose. Or if they want to play everybody on the ball, they're going to have to run some tight end middle screens. Look, middle screen tight end. Those linebackers don't want to back up. Make them back up. Throw the ball right over top of their head. Make them back up. I mean, so it's going to be game flow. It is every week. That's a silly statement, but you got to come in with some type of plan. And I think Pittsburgh's plan is going to be to attack them downfield to make them back up, because I look for them to start off with 8 people in the box and not allow Pittsburgh to run the ball, because what does Pittsburgh want to do? They want to do the same thing the Eagles want to do. They want to run the ball. If Pittsburgh could throw 19 passes, if Pittsburgh either one of these teams throw less than 20 passes this week, there's your winner. There's your winner, because they never lose control of the ball. They're running over your ass.
That would be pretty great. I am very much looking forward to this game. I'm speeding through it a little bit. I know it is an important game, but also it's in a different conference. I'm more worried about next week with Baltimore. Like, as Lou alluded to, that is far more important, where you want to see our guys back from injury, et cetera, et cetera.
What sucks about this week's game, man, it's the same time as the Buffalo Lions game. So I'm at to watch that one on tape delay.
Sorry about that, Buffalo. Speaking of Buffalo, actually, let me back up 1 quick second here. Let me get your prediction for the Eagles game right now, because I do want to get into Buffalo a little bit.
The Eagles Steelers. Until they prove me wrong, man, I could see Pittsburgh losing this game 21-20.
Okay.
And that's actually higher than I think it will go. But that's only 3 drives for them, 2 for us, and our traditional 2 field goals. But man, I could easily see Pittsburgh winning, but everything I see and everything I've seen in my lifetime says we're not going to win there. So, like I keep telling y'all about the Chiefs before, y'all get mad. This is the Steelers show. Why you betting against the Steelers? First off, I'm not betting. I'm predicting.
Mm-hmm.
Like I say about the Chiefs, until somebody beat them, how you picking against them? Until Pittsburgh go to Philly and win, no one on Pittsburgh's, maybe Danny Smith in their organization, other than the owner, has been alive since Pittsburgh won in Philadelphia. Alive. Not in the league. I said alive, including my old ass. I'm 51. That's 59 years ago. No one's been alive. So until we do it, I'll predict a 1-point loss for us this week. And that's why we got to handle business in these next couple games. Win that division next week. If you win, Pittsburgh win, I just looked it up. They win, they're in. So that adds a whole nother incentive, which means George Pickens could try to play. But I just don't see it. If he does, if George Pickens plays, Pittsburgh wins this game 23-21. If he doesn't, we may lose 21-20.
What's funny is 23-21 was going to be my prediction, regardless of Pickens playing. I just think we're going to buck the trend. I think this team is different. They got a certain swag to them. Even when it's ugly and you muck up the game, they find a way to win. I think Boswell is going to be a magician again. He's the MVP of the league. Saquon can walk himself over to the Player of the Year award. I am fine with that. Give this award to Chris Boswell.
And the thing, though, is you're playing another team where you can't keep kicking field goals.
No.
Because you're playing a
Not
team,
really.
if it's 4th and 1 or 4th and 2 in your own territory or on the plus side of the field, they're going for it.
Mm-hmm.
They're not kicking a 45-yard field goal. They're going for it. If it's 4th and 1, 4th and 2, you better put the ball in the back of the end zone. Now, with Russ's confidence level and the way he's playing is off the chart right now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know the numbers don't always look great, but you got to watch the game. He has control of the game. He's throwing that ball out of bounds when he should throw it out of bounds. He threw it out of bounds. That's where he should have thrown it. Where'd you want him to throw it? You want us? We could have got Jameis Winston if you want him to throw that interception. But then you be bitching because he threw an interception. Man, throw the ball up in the 4th row.
Yep.
And then guess what? Punt. Drive ins with what? A kick instead of a turnover.
When you have the defense of Pittsburgh, this is why I think this team is different. And we'll get more after this. We'll get into the playoff picture. When you have a team with this kind of defense and you have an offense that is not driven by the stat line, which a lot of teams are. Look at the Cowboys. Look at the Bengals. They are driven by their stats. I'm not saying they don't want to win. I'm just saying they really like their – Russ don't care if he throws 150 yards against Cleveland. He gets that W. That's what he wants, period. He wants another Super Bowl because he knows he's on his way out. A lot of these guys on the defensive side of the ball are getting older. They're going to want that same thing. They want that push. They want a chance to get that Super Bowl ring. And for a lot of these younger guys, more importantly, they want to show out and show that they can play team ball because they got contracts coming up soon. And that's going to be their big payday. So the whole way this team is set up, and this is credit to Omar and Mike, they did a fantastic job meshing the right group of guys in with all one goal in mind. And again, to Mike's credit as a head coach, keeping that focus has been there. I mean, George Pickens acting out a little bit. He's a receiver. We all know he's going to do that. But he's too far away from the ball to keep it together every week.
And if you're a Steelers fan, you've been dealing with that since Martavius Bryant. Like every receiver's been a diva. Their number one receiver's been a diva. And they're also doing this with 2 rookie linemen and a second-year lineman. Yep. So this team is built for the future, and it's looking like the future's now. It's crazy. It's crazy. This is the most complete team Pittsburgh's had, arguably, since their last Super Bowl run with Mendenhall and all those guys, Ben, Mendenhall, all those guys. But this is looking like a complete team. Like, you don't worry about them on the road, at home. It's just the Eagles. I've seen complete teams go in there and get completely blown out.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's because the Eagles are also a pretty complete team.
Yeah, I mean, it's for some reason they traditionally every 8 years they don't play well in Philly. I don't know if they're taking a bus to the game or flying, but do the opposite. Try something different. Stay at a different hotel. Do something different.
Here's another fun reason you might see George Pickens on the field this week. The Buffalo Bills, as Lou mentioned, play at Detroit this week. We are currently in a tie, 10-3, 10-3. Chiefs have the second. We have the third. My fault. We're 2 games back from the Chiefs. I know it was said off camera. Are we allowed to say it on camera?
Absolutely. The Browns will beat the Chiefs this week.
Boom.
Because that's what Cleveland. If the game was in Kansas City, you would not hear me say that. It's in Cleveland, and the Chiefs are got to be out of rabbit feet. They won the last one off, kicked the field goal, and they hit the upright and went in, and that's how they won.
It's got to be over.
You watch the Browns beat them.
It's
and Buffalo's in for a hell of a game. I don't know who winning that, but that's going to be a hellfire game.
Mm-hmm. So with that being said, the Steelers can conceivably, after this week, have the second seed in the playoffs, clinch their playoff berth, and be one game behind the Chiefs, 2 weeks away from going into Arrowhead Stadium and playing the Chiefs. We go into Arrowhead, right?
That game's at Acrisure. It's in Pittsburgh on Christmas Day.
Yep.
But in order for that to happen, they have to win this week and have to beat the Ravens next week in Baltimore, which is going to be tough. Going to be really tough. But
I don't want to say I would be disappointed to see us start to fall apart. And don't get me wrong, we have a very tough schedule. Very tough. It is Eagles, it is Ravens, it is Chiefs, and then it's the Bengals to end the season. Conversely, the Buffalo Bills play the Lions, Patriots, Jets, Patriots. I mean, we got to win. If you want if you want at least that second seed, you got to win.
It is what it is. The number one object, you want to chip in the chair. You want to get in and see what happens from there. So first thing you get in, you worry about the rest of that shit later. But like everybody's complaining, 3 games in 10 days. We play the Chiefs on Christmas Day. Well, guess what? They play us on Christmas Day too, and the game is in Pittsburgh. Both teams will be coming off of a game. They play the 21st, and then they play the 25th. The benefit Pittsburgh has is they don't have to travel. The Chiefs only get 3 days because they have to come to the game. They have to be at the game 24 hours before kickoff. Now, they can do some work in the hotel, which all teams do. You do that shit in college. But the bottom line is that's a game that Pittsburgh should win if they can be focused because it is Christmas Day. Generally, teams that go on the road like that are more focused because they don't have their kids or their wife, and I'm not saying anything negative about the wives or kids, but they just don't have that distraction. They're just sitting in the hotel prepping.
Yep.
Pittsburgh players, if they don't make them go to a team hotel that night, they opening up gifts with kids that morning. But the game's at 1 o'clock though, so that does help. But guess what too? The Ravens play the same day. So no one's and the Texans, they'll both be coming off the same 4 days rest. So no one look, the schedule's the schedule. And those are your top, I believe those are your top 4 teams. Oh, no, Buffalo's out of the mix. So that's 4 of your top 5 teams in the AFC, all playing on 4 days rest. So the playing field is still fair.
Yeah. Look, this is what we need to get back to getting used to as Steelers fans is don't start whining. Don't cry about what didn't happen and what could have happened and which we are the Pittsburgh Steelers. We handle our business. Whatever you throw at us, we'll take, and we will roll with the punches. Grow up.
Yeah, the kicker is, like I said, we want that number 1 seed, obviously. Who doesn't? But you want a chip in a chair. I mean, you could be sitting here and being the Indianapolis Colts and be 2 games or be in the 8th spot and 2 games out, hoping and praying that you can catch a break and slide in. Or the Bengals, same situation. They 3 games out. But at least in Indianapolis's case, they can cut it to 1 game because they play at Denver this week, and Denver's in the 7th seed. You know, Denver has a tough game coming up at Cincinnati. So these schedules are tough for some of these teams.
No, they really are. And I mean, look, the Chiefs have Browns this week, as we mentioned. We're already chalking that up to a loss. They got the Texans. They got the Steelers in Pittsburgh, as we said, on Christmas Day. And then they end the season against a very difficult and coming into their own Broncos team. Chiefs aren't out of this yet either. The rest of this Broncos game is going to be wild.
And I think that Broncos game is in Denver, isn't it?
You are correct. January 5th.
Yeah. So this number 1 seed is completely up for grab. Technically, it should be Buffalo when you look at the schedules everybody else has. But if Pittsburgh can just match Buffalo's schedule, you know, or their record, they both got wins over the Chiefs. And it's that Buffalo win over Kansas City, which gives them the strength of victory. That's why they rank second now.
Yep.
They're the Chiefs' only loss. That's the only reason they're second.
Yep.
So if Pittsburgh can beat Kansas City, then beat Baltimore again, beat Cincinnati, they run up there if they're tied. Their strength of schedule should beat Buffalo for that number 1 seed.
Basically, if you don't know what Lou's saying, I will quote Samuel L. Jackson from Jurassic Park and say, hold on to your butts. It is about to be a wild end of this season. And with that, for Lou Willard, I'm Corey Idle. This is 6 Rings and Counting, and we will see you next week. Aside from what this grumpy Gus thinks, with the victory. We'll see you next week.